The world is hungry for energy. For many decades, oil, coal have been the main sources of power for our homes, factories, transport. They have fueled our modern world, but now many people think a new energy source is ready to take the crown. This new contender is liquefied natural gas, or LNG. It is a form of natural gas, cooled to a very low temperature, turning it into a liquid. This process makes it much easier to transport across oceans in giant, specialized ships. The question everyone is asking is a big one. Can LNG truly replace oil, coal, as the world's most important fuel? Many leaders and companies believe the answer is yes. They see LNG as a cleaner alternative to coal, which produces more pollution when burned. They also see it as a reliable partner for renewable energy sources like wind, solar, which are not always available. When the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, LNG power plants can quickly turn on to keep the lights on. This flexibility makes it very attractive. The recent energy crisis in Europe, driven by the war in Ukraine, has made this argument even stronger. Countries are rushing to secure new energy supplies, and LNG is at the top of their list. This growing excitement has set off a huge wave of investment. Countries are building massive terminals to receive LNG. Energy companies are spending billions on new projects to produce it. But the most visible sign of this boom is in the shipyards. Companies are ordering hundreds of new LNG carriers, the giant ships needed to move the fuel around the world. These orders represent a massive bet on the future of gas. It is a bet that demand will continue to grow for decades to come, justifying the enormous cost of building these high-tech vessels. This is not a small gamble. It's a trillion-dollar decision. However, not everyone is convinced that LNG is the long-term answer. Some experts call it a bridge fuel, a temporary solution to help us move from coal to a zero-carbon future. They worry that building so much new gas infrastructure will lock in fossil fuel use for many more years, making it harder to meet climate goals. They also point to the risks of methane, a powerful greenhouse gas that can leak during the production and transport of LNG. This essay will explore this massive bet. We will look at the facts behind the hype, the money being spent, the risks involved, who is likely to win or lose in this new energy game. The scale of the investment in the LNG market is truly staggering. When we add up the cost of new production facilities, pipelines, import terminals, and the massive fleet of new ships, the total figure quickly climbs into the trillions of dollars. This is not just a small shift in the energy market, it is a fundamental reshaping of the global energy map. Companies and countries are making decisions today that will have consequences for the next 30 to 40 years. They are betting that the world's thirst for natural gas will grow so large that these huge investments will pay off handsomely, creating a new era of energy security and prosperity. The central theme of this essay is to look closely at this trillion-dollar bet. We will examine the evidence for and against this LNG boom. Is the current rush to build ships and terminals based on solid, long-term market signals? Or is it a temporary bubble driven by market hype and recent geopolitical shocks? To answer this, we need to understand the forces at play. We will look at who is ordering these ships and why. We will explore where the demand for LNG is coming from, particularly in fast-growing economies in Asia and in Europe as it moves away from Russian gas. The story of LNG is a story of supply, demand, and the ships that connect them. The shipbuilding industry is at the very heart of this story. Shipyards in South Korea and China are working at full capacity to build a new generation of advanced LNG carriers. These are not ordinary ships. They are highly complex and expensive floating machines, costing over $250 million each. The orders for these vessels provide a clear signal of the industry's confidence in the future. We will investigate the economics of these orders, the long lead times for construction, and how these bets could go wrong if future demand does not meet today's optimistic forecasts. The fate of these ship orders is directly tied to the future price and availability of gas. Finally, we will not ignore the significant risks. The LNG boom faces challenges from many sides. Geopolitical tensions can disrupt supply chains and shipping routes, as seen with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There are also major environmental questions. As the world gets more serious about tackling climate change, the role of any fossil fuel, even a cleaner one like LNG, is under scrutiny. The risk of new regulations, carbon taxes, or a faster-than-expected transition to renewable energy could leave these trillion-dollar investments as stranded assets. This essay aims to provide a clear, balanced view of this complex and incredibly important topic. Global demand for liquefied natural gas is growing at a remarkable pace. For years, the market grew steadily, but recent events have pushed it into overdrive. In simple numbers, the world traded around 400 million tons of LNG in 2022. Forecasters predict this could rise to over 700 million tons per year by 2040. This is a huge increase, almost doubling the size of the market. This surge is not happening by accident. It is driven by a powerful combination of economic growth, energy security concerns, and environmental policies. Countries are looking for a reliable fuel to power their economies, and for many, LNG is the most attractive option available today. The biggest driver of this new demand has been Europe. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, European nations made a swift and historic decision to reduce their dependence on Russian pipeline gas. This created a massive supply gap that had to be filled urgently. LNG was the only viable alternative that could be sourced quickly and in large quantities. As a result, Europe's LNG imports soared, increasing by over 60% in a single year. Countries like Germany, which had no LNG import terminals before the crisis, rushed to build new facilities in record time. Aerial view of a newly built floating LNG import terminal in a European port. This sudden dramatic shift in demand from one of the world's largest energy markets sent shockwaves through the entire global system. Beyond Europe, the long-term growth story for LNG is centered on Asia. China, India, Southeast Asia need more energy to lift their populations out of poverty and power their industries. For decades, many of these nations have relied heavily on coal, which is cheap but highly polluting. Governments are now under pressure to improve air quality in their cities and meet climate pledges. LNG offers a practical solution. It produces significantly fewer local pollutants, and about half the carbon dioxide emissions of coal when burned for electricity. This makes it a key tool for countries trying to balance economic development with environmental responsibility. This rising demand from both established and emerging markets creates a powerful signal for producers and investors. They see a future where the world will need much more LNG for decades to come. This confidence is what underpins the massive investments in new export projects, from the coasts of Qatar to the shores of the United States. The market picture shows a clear trend. The world is becoming more reliant on natural gas that is transported by sea. The scale of this demand is what fuels the belief that LNG is becoming a central pillar of the global energy system, justifying the enormous financial bets being placed on its future success. The price of LNG is known for being volatile, but recent years have been a true roller coaster. Line graphs showing JKM and TTF 2020-2024 rising. Before 2021, spot prices in Asia were often between $5 and $10 per million British thermal units. As the global economy recovered from the pandemic, energy demand rebounded and prices climbed. The European energy crisis in 2022 sent prices into the stratosphere. At their peak, spot prices in Europe and Asia topped $70 per MMBtu. That was more than 10 times the historical average. The spike caused huge economic pain for importing countries. It showed how vulnerable the market is to sudden shocks. Fundamentally, demand grew much faster than supply. Europe suddenly competed for every available cargo. Traditional Asian buyer, Japan. Traditional Asian buyer, South Korea. There were a limited number of ships. Production capacity was essentially fixed. A fierce bidding war began. Traders who bought cheap in the US could sell into Europe for huge profit. This period highlighted supply security and the interconnected nature of the global gas market. A crisis in one region immediately affects prices everywhere. Since the 2022 peaks, prices have fallen significantly. By early 2024, prices returned to around $10 per MMBtu. Mild winters in Europe reduced heating demand. High prices encouraged energy conservation. New LNG projects slowly came online, adding supply. The drop gave consumers relief and made LNG more competitive. Still, the market remains on edge, sensitive to disruptions, facility outages, geopolitical tensions. Price volatility affects the entire LNG value chain. For buyers, uncertainty in planning and budgeting. For sellers, massive profits or painful losses. For companies ordering new ships, opportunity and risk. High prices push intense demand for shipping and soaring charter rates. When prices fall, the market can become oversupplied, idle vessels, and losses. Understanding this price roller coaster is crucial to the shipping industry's trillion-dollar bet. Section 3. Mapping the major buyers. The global map of LNG buyers is dominated by a few key regions, but it is also expanding and changing. For a long time, the market was led by three major Asian buyers: Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. These nations lack domestic energy resources and have relied on LNG for decades to power economies and heat homes. Japan remains the world's largest LNG importer. Established buyers favor long-term contracts for stable, predictable supplies. Consistent demand has been the bedrock of the LNG industry, enabling financing of large, capital-intensive projects. But the geography of demand is shifting. China is the most important new player. In 2021, China briefly overtook Japan as the top importer. Imports dipped during its slowdown, but long-term demand is expected to grow as China moves away from coal. Chinese state-owned energy companies are signing multi-decade deals. Qatar, United States. That growing appetite is a key reason producers are expanding capacity. Europe is the other major growth region. The urgent need to replace Russian gas has turned Europe into a premium LNG market. Longtime importers, United Kingdom, Spain, France, rapidly expanding, Germany, Italy, other European countries. Europe now competes directly with Asia, creating a more integrated market. Europe's demand is expected to remain strong this decade as renewables expand. A new wave of buyers is emerging in South and Southeast Asia. India, Pakistan, Thailand, Vietnam. These countries view LNG as a cleaner, affordable alternative to oil and coal for industrialization and reliable power. The expanded buyer base adds another layer of demand, further strengthening the case for a long-term LNG boom. This diversification makes the market more resilient and less dependent on any single country or region. Section 4. LNG's place in the energy mix. To understand the LNG boom, we must see where it fits within the world's total energy consumption. Globally, fossil fuels still dominate. Oil, coal, natural gas. Renewable energy is the fastest growing source, but its overall share is still relatively small. Within this fossil fuel group, natural gas is seen by many as the cleanest option. When used to generate electricity, natural gas emits about half the carbon dioxide of coal. This half the emissions fact is one of the most powerful arguments for expanding its use as a transition fuel. Compared to the other major fossil fuels, the market for gas is different. The oil market is truly global. The coal market is more regional. The natural gas market, by contrast, has historically been dominated by regional pipelines. The rise of LNG is changing this. It is making the gas market more global, more flexible, and more like the oil market. LNG now accounts for over 13% of global gas consumption, and this share is growing every year. It is effectively creating a single, interconnected world market for natural gas. In the power generation sector, LNG's role is particularly important. It competes directly with coal, nuclear, and renewables. Its main advantage is flexibility. A gas-fired power plant can be turned on and off much more quickly than a coal or nuclear plant. This makes it an ideal partner for intermittent renewable sources like wind, solar. When the sun sets or the wind stops blowing, gas plants can ramp up quickly to fill the gap, ensuring a stable and reliable electricity grid. This supportive role is why even countries with ambitious renewable energy targets, like those in Europe, see a continuing need for gas capacity for many years to come. However, LNG's position is not guaranteed. Its main competitors are coal on the cheaper, more polluting end, and renewables on the cleaner, but more variable end. In many developing Asian countries, the choice between a new coal plant and a new LNG terminal is a difficult one. Coal is often cheaper and uses domestic resources, while LNG can be expensive and dependent on volatile international prices. On the other side, the costs of solar, wind, and battery storage are falling rapidly. If these technologies become cheap and reliable enough to provide power 24/7, the need for gas as a backup fuel could decline faster than expected. LNG's future depends on its ability to remain competitive against both of these powerful rivals. Section 1. Why order a ship now? Energy companies and ship owners are placing a massive bet on the future of LNG. This bet takes the form of ordering new LNG carriers, the specialized vessels needed to transport the fuel across oceans. The decision to order a ship is a huge financial commitment, costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Companies are making these orders now for a simple reason. They see a future where much more LNG will need to be moved around the world. And they know that without more ships, all that new gas will be stranded. The ships are the vital link that connects supply with demand. This rush to order ships is driven by a clear forecast of a market shortfall. Analysts predict that as new LNG production facilities, known as liquefaction trains, start operating, from 2025 onwards, there will not be enough ships to carry all the new volume. This looming shipping shortage has created a sense of urgency. Ship owners who can get a new vessel delivered at the right time stand to make enormous profits. They can charter their ships out to energy companies on long-term contracts, often for 10 years or 15 years. These contracts provide a stable, predictable income stream, which makes the massive upfront investment much less risky. It's a race to secure a spot in the future LNG supply chain. The timing of these orders is also influenced by the long lead times in shipbuilding. It takes about 3 years to 4 years from the moment a contract is signed to the day a new LNG carrier is delivered. This means a company ordering a ship today in mid-2024 will likely receive it in 2027 or 2028. This delivery window aligns perfectly with the timeline for when the next major wave of LNG export projects is expected to come online. Companies are essentially booking their delivery slots now to ensure they have the capacity ready when it's needed most. Waiting too long could mean missing out on the most profitable period of the market expansion. Finally, the decision to order is a strategic one. For major energy players like Shell, Total Energies, or state-owned companies like Qatar Energy, controlling their own shipping gives them a competitive advantage. It ensures they can deliver their LNG to customers reliably and at a predictable cost without being exposed to the volatile short-term charter market. For independent ship owners, It is a calculated investment based on securing long-term employment for their new assets. In both cases, the motivation is the same, a powerful belief that the global demand for LNG will be strong and sustained for decades to come, making these floating assets incredibly valuable. Section 2. The high-tech floating thermos. An LNG carrier is not just any ship, one of the most technologically advanced and expensive merchant vessels in the world. Its job: transport natural gas in liquid form. At an extremely cold temperature, 162 degrees, that's 260 degrees. So the ship is basically a giant high-tech thermos. Cargo sits in massive, heavily insulated tanks. Tanks designed to keep LNG cold for long ocean voyages. Maintaining that cryogenic temperature is the single biggest design challenge. Two main containment systems are used today. Moss system, big spherical tanks visible above deck. These spheres are strong and reliable. Membrane system, tanks integrated into the hull, developed by GTT. Gives the vessel a conventional, flat deck appearance. Membrane ships can carry more cargo for their size. Both systems demand incredible construction precision. They use advanced materials to handle extreme cold and prevent hull brittleness. Building one of these ships is extremely costly. In 2024, a standard new LNG carrier carries about 174,000 cubic meters of LNG and costs over $260 million. Prices have climbed due to high demand for new vessels. Increased material costs, limited shipyard capacity. Ordering a new ship requires deep financial backing and belief in the long-term health of the LNG market. Insuring these assets is also a major expense. Premiums reflect complex technology and high cargo value. Beyond containment, these ships are packed with advanced tech. Boil-off gas, a small amount of LNG that naturally evaporates during the voyage. It isn't wasted. Modern ships capture that gas and use it as fuel for the engines. That improves efficiency and cuts the environmental footprint. New carriers feature highly efficient dual-fuel engines that can run on boil-off gas or conventional marine fuels. This tech raises cost and complexity, but it's essential for safe, efficient operation. Section 3. The shipyard bottleneck. If you want to build a large, modern LNG carrier, you have very few places to go. The construction of these highly complex vessels is dominated by just 3 major shipbuilders in South Korea: HD Hyundai Heavy Industries, Samsung Heavy Industries, Hanwha Ocean, formerly Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering. For many years, these 3 yards have held a near monopoly on the market. Decades of experience, advanced technology, and a skilled workforce. They have perfected the difficult process of building the sophisticated cargo containment systems, essential for transporting LNG safely. This concentration of expertise has created a major bottleneck in the supply of new ships. The bottleneck has become even more pronounced during the recent ordering boom. So many companies are rushing to secure new vessels. South Korean shipyards have seen order books fill at a record pace. As of early 2024, construction slots are sold out until 2028. Any company ordering today must wait at least 4 years for delivery. That long waiting list gives the shipyards enormous pricing power. They can charge higher prices for limited construction slots, contributing to the sharp increase in new build costs. Chinese shipyards are responding, trying to enter the high-value LNG carrier market. Hudong Zhonghua, Dalian Shipbuilding. State-owned builders are investing heavily in new technology and facilities. They have started winning significant orders, including from major international players. South Korea still holds the technological edge and the largest market share, but China's emergence is significant. It could help ease the production bottleneck and introduce more competition, potentially bringing down costs in the long run. However, building an LNG carrier is difficult. Scaling up is slow. It requires massive physical infrastructure, a deep pool of specialized engineers, and certified welders who can handle cryogenic materials. The supply chain for critical components is tight. including membrane containment systems from GTT in France. For now, the world's ability to build LNG carriers can't keep up with demand. This shipyard bottleneck is a critical constraint on expanding the global LNG trade, and a major factor driving high shipping costs. You know, it's a real choke point. Section 4. The world's biggest shopping spree. The scale of the recent ordering for new LNG carriers is unprecedented. It can only be described as the biggest shopping spree in the history of the shipping industry. A graphic illustrating the massive volume of recent LNG carrier orders, with bars representing orders by Qatar, major energy companies, and independent owners. At the forefront of this activity is Qatar Energy, the state-owned energy giant of Qatar. As part of its massive North Field expansion project, which will dramatically increase its LNG production capacity, Qatar Energy has launched a shipbuilding program of staggering size. The company has booked construction slots at all the major shipyards, South Korea, China, to build more than 100 new LNG carriers. This single program represents the largest ship acquisition plan ever undertaken by one company. This massive fleet is essential for Qatar's ambition to maintain its position as a leading global LNG supplier. By controlling its own transportation, Qatar Energy can ensure its new production volumes reach customers around the world reliably and cost-effectively. It also gives the company immense market power. These orders alone have filled a huge portion of the world's available shipyard capacity for the next several years, making it more difficult and expensive for other players to order their own ships. Qatar's strategy is to control not just the production of gas, but also the means of its delivery, creating an integrated and powerful position in the global energy market. Beyond Qatar, all the major global energy companies have also been active in ordering new ships. Shell, Total Energies, ExxonMobil, Chevron. They are expanding their LNG portfolios and need more shipping capacity to support their trading operations and deliver gas from their projects. They have been placing multi-ship orders with the top shipyards, often tying these orders to specific new export projects in the United States, Africa, Australia. These companies need modern, efficient vessels to optimize their global logistics and minimize their transportation costs, which are a key component of their overall profitability in the competitive LNG market. Independent ship owners are also a major part of this ordering boom. These are companies whose primary business is owning and chartering out vessels, rather than producing or trading the commodity itself. Greek ship owners, who have historically dominated oil tanker and bulk carrier markets, have become major players in LNG shipping as well. They are placing speculative orders, betting that the demand for ships will be so strong that they can secure lucrative long-term charters from energy companies before the vessels are even delivered. This wave of investment from all sides, national oil companies, energy majors, and private ship owners, has created a tidal wave of capital flowing into the shipbuilding industry. Well, that's the scale of it. Section 5. Charter markets and freight costs. The cost of shipping is a crucial part of the final delivered price of LNG. This cost is determined in the charter market, where companies that need to transport LNG hire a ship for a voyage or a period. There are two main types of charter markets: spot market, long-term market. The spot market is for short-term hires, often for a single journey. Its prices, known as charter rates, are extremely volatile. When there are many available ships and few cargoes to move, spot rates can fall to levels that barely cover the ship's operating costs. However, when the market is tight and there are more cargoes than available ships, spot charter rates can skyrocket. During the peak of the European energy crisis in late 2022, spot rates for LNG carriers surged to record highs of over $400,000 per day. At these levels, the cost of a single voyage from the US to Europe could add several dollars per MMBtu to the price of the gas. This demonstrated how a shipping bottleneck can directly lead to higher energy prices for consumers. For a ship owner lucky enough to have a vessel available in the spot market at that time, it was a period of extraordinary profits. This volatility shows the high-risk, high-reward nature of the spot charter business. To avoid this extreme volatility, most LNG is transported on ships hired through long-term charters. In this arrangement, an energy company will charter a vessel from a ship owner for a period of several years, often 10, 15, or even 20 years. The charter rate is fixed for the duration of the contract, providing cost certainty for the energy company. It also provides a stable revenue stream for the ship owner. These long-term contracts are the financial foundation of the LNG shipping industry. They give ship owners the confidence to order new, expensive vessels, often securing a charter before the ship is even built. The final delivered price of LNG is therefore made up of three main parts: the price of the gas at the export terminal, the cost of shipping, the cost of turning the liquid back into a gas at the import terminal. Freight costs can vary significantly depending on the voyage distance. Freight costs can vary depending on fuel costs. Freight costs can vary depending on the charter rate for the ship. In a balanced market, shipping might account for 10 to 15% of the final price. But when charter rates spike, that percentage can become much larger. The massive bet on new ships is ultimately a bet that these vessels will be needed to keep freight costs stable and ensure LNG remains a competitive energy source around the world. Section 1. The new energy superpowers. The global map of energy power is being redrawn, and LNG is the pen. For decades, geopolitical influence was held by oil-rich states and pipeline powers: Saudi Arabia, Russia. Now, a new group of energy superpowers is rising, defined by LNG production and exports. Three countries stand out: the United States, Qatar, Australia. Together, they account for the majority of global LNG supply. Their production and sales decisions shape global energy security and prices. Qatar has long been a dominant LNG force. Qatar sits on one of the world's largest gas fields, shared with Iran. It has been a reliable supplier to Asian markets. With the North Field expansion, Qatar will dramatically increase capacity. That expansion will cement Qatar as a top-tier LNG superpower. Qatar's strategy: long-term contracts, state-led investment, and a huge shipbuilding program. That strategy gives Qatar control across the supply chain. The United States has become a fast-growing LNG giant. The shale gas revolution unlocked cheap, abundant gas. The U.S. went from potential importer to leading exporter in under a decade. U.S. LNG is driven by private companies, not the state. That creates a flexible, market-responsive system where cargoes go to the highest bidder. U.S. flexibility helped supply Europe during its energy crisis. Australia is the third major player. Australia supplies Asia, Japan, China. But Australia faces challenges. Projects are complex and costly. Domestic debates over gas prices and environmental regulations could curb growth. The competition, Qatar, the U.S., and Australia, will define the global gas trade for years. Section 2. The race for Europe's gas market. Before 2022, Russia was the undisputed king of Europe's gas market, supplying around 40% of the continent's needs through a vast network of pipelines. The war in Ukraine changed everything. European leaders made a historic decision to cut their dependency on Russian energy, creating a colossal supply gap. This set off a frantic, high-stakes race among the world's LNG producers to capture this huge and wealthy market. Europe suddenly became the premium destination for LNG cargoes, with buyers willing to pay almost any price to ensure their lights stayed on and their homes remained warm. This was a once-in-a-generation shift in global energy flows. The United States quickly became the primary winner in this race. Its geographical proximity, compared to Australia, and its flexible destination-free contracts made it the perfect supplier for Europe's urgent needs. U.S. LNG exports to Europe more than doubled in 2022, single-handedly replacing a large portion of the lost Russian pipeline gas. This shift has created a new energy alliance across the Atlantic. The U.S. is no longer just a military ally to Europe. It is now a critical partner for its energy security. This new relationship gives the U.S. significant geopolitical leverage and reinforces its role as a global energy leader in the post-Russian gas era. Qatar also played a crucial role in stabilizing the European market. Most of its volumes were already committed to Asian buyers under long-term contracts, but Qatar was able to divert some cargoes and increase production where possible. European countries like Germany and Italy have rushed to sign new, long-term deals with Qatar for supplies that will start later this decade. These deals are a clear sign that Europe sees Qatari LNG as a key part of its long-term strategy to permanently diversify away from Russian gas. Qatar has skillfully used this crisis to lock in new customers and expand its market share in one of the world's most lucrative energy markets. This intense competition for the European market has had global consequences. As more LNG cargoes were diverted to Europe, there were fewer available for other buyers in Asia and Latin America. This created supply anxiety and high prices around the world. Countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh, which rely on LNG for power generation, found themselves unable to afford cargoes and suffered from blackouts. The race for Europe's gas highlighted how interconnected the global LNG market has become. A supply shock in one region now sends immediate and powerful ripples across the entire planet, affecting the economic and social stability of nations far removed from the original crisis. The journey of an LNG carrier from an export terminal to an import terminal is a long and complex one, often passing through narrow maritime passages known as choke points. These strategic waterways are critical for global trade, but they are also points of significant vulnerability. Any disruption in one of these choke points can delay shipments, increase costs, and threaten energy security for entire nations. For the LNG trade, the most important choke points are the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, and the Strait of Hormuz. The safe and reliable passage of LNG carriers through these narrow channels is essential for the smooth functioning of the global gas market. The Panama Canal is a vital shortcut for LNG carriers from the U.S. Gulf Coast to Asia. It can save about 11 days versus going around South America. But the canal has faced major challenges recently. Severe drought in Central America has lowered water levels, feeding the canal's locks, and authorities have had to drastically cut daily transits. That has created long queues and forced some LNG carriers onto the much longer route around South America, driving up fuel and shipping costs and delaying cargo arrivals in Asia. The Suez Canal connects the Atlantic and Indian Oceans and is a primary route for LNG from Qatar and the U.S. to Europe, and for some U.S. cargoes to Asia. In 2021, the Ever Given ran aground, blocking the canal for nearly a week, creating a massive traffic jam that included LNG carriers. More recently, Houthi attacks in the Red Sea have pushed ships to avoid the Suez Canal. They now often sail around Africa instead, adding weeks to voyages and millions in extra fuel costs. The Strait of Hormuz between Oman and Iran is arguably the world's most important energy choke point. About 1/3 of seaborne LNG passes through it, mostly from Qatar's huge export terminals. Its proximity to Iran makes the strait a constant geopolitical flashpoint. Any conflict or deliberate blockage could instantly halt a huge portion of global LNG supply and send energy prices soaring to catastrophic levels. The heavy reliance of the LNG market on these few vulnerable choke points is a major risk that keeps energy traders and national security planners awake at night. As traditional shipping lanes become more congested and face new risks, some are looking towards a radical new alternative: the Arctic. As climate change warms the planet, the sea ice that once blocked the Arctic Ocean for most of the year is melting, This is opening up new potential shipping routes, most notably the Northern Sea route along Russia's northern coastline. For a journey from an LNG project in Siberia to a port in China, the NSR can be up to 40% shorter than the traditional route through the Suez Canal. This could save significant time, fuel, and money, making it a very attractive prospect for shipping companies. Russia has been the primary champion of the Northern Sea route. The country sees the route as a strategic national priority and has invested heavily in a fleet of powerful nuclear-powered icebreakers to keep the passage open for longer periods. Russia's massive Yamal LNG and Arctic LNG 2 were designed specifically to use this route to ship gas to Asia during the summer months. For Russia, the NSR is not just a commercial shortcut, it is a way to project power in the high north and create a new energy corridor that it controls, free from the choke points of the Suez or Panama canals. However, the Arctic route is filled with immense challenges and risks. The navigation season is still limited to a few months, in the summer and autumn, and even then, weather conditions can be extreme and unpredictable. Floating ice remains a constant danger, requiring specially designed, expensive ice-class vessels with reinforced hulls. There is also a near-total lack of search and rescue infrastructure along the remote and desolate route. An accident or mechanical failure in the Arctic could be catastrophic, both for the crew and for the pristine and fragile polar environment, where an LNG spill would be almost impossible to clean up. Furthermore, the geopolitics of the Arctic are becoming more complex. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has made international cooperation on the Northern Sea route almost impossible. Western sanctions have targeted Russia's Arctic LNG projects, and international shipping and insurance companies are now extremely hesitant to engage in any trade that involves Russia. While the physical route may be opening up due to melting ice, the political and commercial barriers are now higher than ever. For now, the Arctic route remains more of a high-risk, niche option than a mainstream alternative. It is a frontier that is both tempting and treacherous. The most powerful argument for LNG is that it is cleaner than coal. When burned for power, natural gas produces about half the carbon dioxide of coal and far fewer of the pollutants that cause acid rain and smog. This has positioned LNG as a so-called bridge fuel, helping the world transition from high-carbon coal to a zero-carbon future. However, this cleaner image is facing a serious challenge from a powerful, invisible threat: methane. Methane is the main component of natural gas, and it is a potent greenhouse gas. Over a 20-year period, a molecule of methane traps more than 80 times the heat of a molecule of carbon dioxide, making it a major driver of short-term global warming. The problem is that methane can leak into the atmosphere at every stage of the LNG supply chain. Small amounts can escape during the drilling and extraction process at the gas well. More can leak from the thousands of miles of pipelines. The liquefaction process itself can also be a source of emissions. Finally, during the long sea voyage and the regasification process, small leaks and venting can release more methane. These leaks, even if they are small, can add up and seriously undermine LNG's climate credentials. Accurately measuring these methane leaks is extremely difficult, and it has become a major point of scientific and political debate. The industry has long argued that leakage rates are very low, typically less than 1%. A growing body of independent scientific research using satellites and aerial surveys suggests that the actual leakage rates could be significantly higher in some regions. If the total methane leakage from well to consumer is above a certain threshold, around 3%, then the climate advantage of using natural gas over coal can completely disappear. This would transform LNG from a climate solution into just another part of the climate problem, making it a much less attractive long-term investment. This methane question is now at the center of the debate over LNG's future. Environmental groups are putting intense pressure on governments and investors to account for these life cycle emissions. In response, the industry is investing in new technologies to detect and repair leaks, and some producers are beginning to market their product as responsibly sourced gas with certified low methane emissions. The ability of the LNG industry to get a handle on its methane problem will be critical. It will determine whether governments continue to support LNG as a bridge fuel or decide to leapfrog directly from coal to renewable energy sources, leaving the massive new fleet of LNG carriers with a much shorter lifespan than their owners expect. Section 2. The concept of LNG as a bridge fuel is a powerful and persuasive narrative. The idea is that gas allows economies, particularly in Asia, to move away from highly polluting coal, today immediately reducing carbon dioxide emissions and improving air quality. This bridge provides a stable, reliable energy source that can support the grid, while countries build out their renewable energy capacity, wind farms, solar farms. This journey, according to the narrative, could take several decades. This long time frame is exactly what is needed to justify enormous multi-billion-dollar investments in new LNG export terminals and the fleet of ships being built to serve them. Critics ask, a bridge to where? They worry a massive trillion-dollar bridge of new gas infrastructure will lock the world into another generation of fossil fuel dependency. The lifespan of a new LNG terminal or gas-fired power plant is typically 30 to 40 years. An LNG carrier built today will be expected to operate until the 2050s. If the world is serious about net zero by 2050, these assets would have to be retired early, long before they have paid for themselves. That creates a powerful incentive for owners to lobby for continued use, potentially delaying the transition to truly clean energy. Proponents see a long, sturdy bridge lasting for decades. Opponents see a short, rickety structure. They point to the rapidly falling costs of renewable energy and battery storage. In many places, building a new solar or wind farm is already cheaper than a new gas power plant. As batteries improve, renewables can increasingly provide round-the-clock power, reducing the need for gas as backup. If that continues, the bridge might only be needed for a decade, not half a century. That debate has huge implications for shipping. A long bridge means hundreds of new LNG carriers will be highly profitable for their whole working lives. A short bridge risks massive oversupply by the 2030s. Charter rates could collapse and brand new, $260 million vessels could become financial liabilities. The entire LNG ship boom is a bet on a long bridge, and it could go spectacularly wrong if the world crosses to the other side faster than expected. Section 3. The rising tide of regulation. The global LNG industry is operating in an environment of growing regulatory uncertainty. As governments around the world become more serious about their climate commitments under agreements like the Paris Accord,
they are beginning to implement policies that could directly impact the cost and demand for LNG.
This rising tide of regulation represents one of the biggest non-market risks to the trillion-dollar bet on gas. Investors and ship owners must now navigate a complex and evolving landscape of environmental rules that could change the fundamental economics of their business in the coming years. A policy decision made in Brussels, a policy decision made in Beijing, a policy decision made in Washington can have a direct impact on the profitability of a ship sailing between Texas and Tokyo. One of the most significant regulatory trends is the move towards carbon pricing. The European Union has been a leader in this area with its emissions trading system, which puts a price on CO2 emissions. Starting in 2024, the shipping industry was included in the EU ETS. This means that ships, including LNG carriers, calling at European ports, must now buy allowances to cover their carbon emissions. This directly increases the cost of shipping to Europe. Other countries are considering similar carbon tax or trading schemes. The prospect of a global carbon price for shipping is becoming increasingly likely. This would make all fossil fuels more expensive to transport and use. Another key area of regulation concerns methane emissions. As the science on methane's powerful warming effect becomes clearer, regulators are starting to take action. The United States Environmental Protection Agency has introduced new rules requiring oil and gas companies to monitor and repair methane leaks from their infrastructure. The European Union is also implementing its own methane regulations, which will apply not only to gas produced in Europe, but also to all gas imported into the continent. This means that LNG producers in the US or Qatar will need to prove that their gas is produced with low methane emissions if they want to sell it to the lucrative European market. This could create a two-tiered market, with clean LNG fetching a higher price than leaky LNG. These regulations are creating new challenges for ship owners as well. The International Maritime Organization is tightening its rules on greenhouse gas emissions from ships. The Carbon Intensity Indicator rating system now grades vessels on their energy efficiency, with poorly rated ships facing potential operational restrictions. This is pushing ship owners to invest in more efficient engines and technologies to reduce emissions. The new generation of LNG carriers, with their advanced dual-fuel engines, are well positioned for this new regulatory reality. However, the pressure will continue to mount, and future regulations could even mandate the use of zero-carbon fuels like ammonia or hydrogen, which would require a complete redesign of ships and their engines, a costly and complex undertaking. Section 4. The risk of stranded assets. The biggest fear for any investor placing a long-term bet is the risk of stranded assets. A stranded asset is something that was once valuable but has lost its value prematurely due to market shifts, new technologies, or changes in regulation. In the context of the LNG boom, the stranded asset risk is enormous. New LNG export terminals, pipelines, power plants, and hundreds of new LNG carriers are being built to operate and generate profits for 30 to 40 years. If the global energy transition happens faster than expected, or if climate regulations become much stricter, these assets could become obsolete and unprofitable long before their planned lifespan. This scenario is no longer a distant, theoretical possibility. Major financial institutions and energy analysts are modeling stranded asset scenarios to understand the potential financial fallout. Imagine a world where, by the mid-2000s and 30s, solar, wind, and battery storage become the cheapest option for new power generation everywhere. In this world, governments, under pressure to meet their climate targets, might decide to phase out gas power plants more quickly than planned. That would cause a sudden and dramatic drop in global LNG demand. The market would be flooded with unwanted gas, causing prices to collapse. For the shipping industry, it would be catastrophic. A sudden drop in demand would create a massive oversupply of LNG carriers, far more ships than cargoes to carry. Charter rates would plummet below daily operating costs. Ship owners who invested over $260 million in a new carrier would find their assets sitting idle, earning no money while still incurring costs for crew, insurance, and maintenance. The second-hand value of these ships would collapse. A high-tech LNG carrier could become little more than a giant piece of floating scrap metal. This risk is the dark cloud hanging over the current LNG boom. Market signals today look strong, driven by Europe's needs and Asia's growth, but the long-term picture is much less certain. The speed of technological innovation in renewables and the political will to tackle climate change are the two great unknowns. Companies and countries investing trillions in the LNG value chain are betting the transition will be slow and gradual. They are betting the bridge will be a long one. If they are wrong, the financial losses could be staggering, and the LNG ship boom of the 2000s and 20s could be remembered as one of the biggest investment miscalculations in the history of energy. Section 1. A bridge, not a destination. The trillion-dollar question hanging over the global energy market is whether liquefied natural gas is the new king of energy, or merely a temporary bridge. After examining the market signals, the geopolitical shifts, and the looming environmental risks, the evidence points towards a clear conclusion. LNG is not a long-term destination, but it is set to be a very long, very wide, and very profitable bridge. For the next 2 decades, its role appears secure. The world's hunger for energy, especially in Asia, combined with Europe's decisive pivot away from Russian gas, has created powerful, sustained demand the current infrastructure cannot meet. This underpins massive investment in new production facilities and an unprecedented shopping spree for LNG carriers. The argument for LNG as a bridge fuel remains compelling, particularly in displacing coal. For developing nations, switching from coal to gas offers immediate improvement in air quality and a substantial reduction in carbon emissions, often the only viable step for countries balancing growth with climate responsibility. Gas-fired power plants are flexible partners for expanding renewable energy. Until battery storage becomes cheap and scalable enough to solve intermittency, gas will be needed to keep the grid stable when the sun doesn't shine and when the wind doesn't blow. This symbiosis gives LNG a vital role through the 2020s and 2030s, and likely into the 2040s. But forces that will render the bridge obsolete are already gathering. Climate change is driving a rising tide of regulation. Carbon pricing, methane restrictions, and efficiency mandates, increasing cost and complexity across the LNG supply chain. Innovation in renewable energy and in battery storage continues to erode fossil fuels' long-term competitiveness. The economics are shifting, and within the next 2 decades, new renewables with storage will likely undercut the all-in cost of importing LNG. That will mark the beginning of the end for the gas bridge. The LNG boom is therefore a bet on timing. Investors, shipbuilders, and energy companies are betting the transition will be long enough for handsome returns. Builders expect a 20-year operational life, with strong charter rates. But LNG as a dominant fuel in 2050 looks increasingly unlikely. The industry is building a bridge, not a permanent highway. If the world crosses that bridge faster than investors expect, many could be left with very expensive stranded assets on the wrong side of the transition. Section 2. Navigating the future. Advice for the key players. For the key players caught in this high-stakes game, the path forward requires a careful balance of ambition and caution. For investors and ship owners, the message is clear. The next decade looks very promising. The demand for modern, efficient LNG carriers is set to outstrip supply. This will support strong charter rates and high asset values. However, it is crucial to focus on the highest quality assets, ships with the latest, most efficient engines and the lowest methane slip. These vessels will be best placed to handle tightening environmental regulations and will be the last to be idled in any future market downturn. Ordering a ship for delivery in the late 2000s and 20s is a calculated risk, but one that could pay off if tied to a long-term charter with a reliable counterparty. For policymakers in energy-importing nations, LNG offers a vital tool for energy security and environmental progress, but it should not be seen as a final solution. Governments should continue to facilitate investment in LNG import infrastructure to diversify supply and move away from coal. However, this must be paired with an aggressive acceleration of investment in renewable energy, grid modernization, and energy efficiency programs. Long-term contracts for LNG supply should be structured with flexibility, and national energy plans must include clear pathways for phasing down gas dependency after 2040. The goal should be to use LNG strategically to lower emissions now, without allowing it to derail the ultimate goal of a net-zero energy system. For energy-producing countries and companies, the imperative is to clean up the supply chain. The future competitiveness of LNG will depend directly on its environmental credentials. This means investing heavily in technology, to detect, measure, and eliminate methane leaks, from wellhead to waterline. Producers who can deliver certified low-methane LNG will command a premium price and secure access to the most discerning markets like Europe. Ignoring the methane issue is not an option. It is an existential threat to the industry's social license to operate. The race is on to produce the cleanest possible molecule of gas. Finally, for the public and civil society, the role is to hold leaders and corporations accountable. The debate around LNG should be based on facts, not just industry hype or idealistic opposition. Citizens should demand transparency on methane emissions and push for policies that ensure the bridge fuel narrative does not become an excuse for inaction on climate change. The public can support a transition that uses LNG to reduce coal pollution today, while simultaneously demanding a clear and binding timetable for the eventual shift to 100% renewable energy. The trillion-dollar bet on LNG affects everyone through energy prices, climate impacts, and economic security, and it deserves our informed attention.